When this was suggested, I straight away said this has got Colin's fingerprints written all over it.
We've been looking at the health and safety implications of getting you to zip wire off the type of Blackpool Tower into the cricket ground. That would be a good one.
Completely changed the way I commentate. Completely changed the way I commentate. To be able to speak to players from in here, from the ground over to India, mid-game, close of play, that was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I was quite nervous about it. Everybody appreciates what level we've got to here.
Thank you for coming to chat to us and stuff like that. And the whole idea of this is just to get a general idea of what it's been like. Actually, what it's been like for the past 4 years. 4 years.
Felt longer.
So, well, we met 4 years ago. I want to say 4 years ago. Have I got that right? Or was it 3 years ago?
2020, so before.
Yeah, so it was 4 years ago. We met 4 years ago. What was your initial thoughts when you first met us? Was it Worcester you met us first?
Yeah. At first, I just thought it was because of a COVID thing, which is what it was. But I didn't really think it would be sustained to the extent, and that it would develop and improve to the extent that it has. I just thought it was a couple of games. You're gonna rock up and put your cameras in place and do your fancy stuff, and that'll be it. But
so remember, obviously we kind of turned up with a hodgepodge of equipment and bits of this and bits of that. It was all very much cobbled together to get the job done and stuff like that. And I think it was off the back of that period when more people were getting to engage it. Oh, this is brilliant. No other counties are doing this. This is great. And then that's obviously when the opportunity started to unfold to ramp it up a level. Do you feel like over the past few years, we've pulled something out of you differently? Are you doing things differently? Has it changed the way that you commentate? Is it giving you an edge? Does it kind of show more of a side or more a character of you, being on a roller, for example, before a game of cricket? Does it open you up a little bit more? Has it changed things a little bit?
Completely changed the way I commentate. Completely changed the way I commentate, because to do it properly, you have to adapt to it, otherwise it sounds disjointed. The biggest thing for me was when we decided to come into the same room together. That was because I was in a commentary box downstairs from where we're having this chat, and I don't know where you guys were. You were in another room somewhere else.
Next door. Yeah.
Next door. And then we decided that and that felt like we were separated, weren't we? It was you'd run a cable from my box into your box, and that would be it.
Through the window. Through the window.
Through the window.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then once that was never going to work. That's never going to work long term for it to be a properly good product. So as soon as we decided to unite and become and not become me doing that and you guys doing that, and we'll just somehow make it work.
Yeah.
We brought it all together, and that made a massive difference. But in terms of how I've commentated on cricket, it's absolutely changed almost everything I do.
So it's interesting because sometimes when you watch you watch and listen to a Sky broadcast, there's lots of periods of complete silence whilst the pictures are doing the work. Whereas because you have to broadcast on radio and on the telly, you're doing both. And I think that's quite unique, actually. I don't think you get a lot of that in commentary. And we noticed a lot of the times where your counterparts from the other corners of the country would come along, they wouldn't even look at the screens that we'd put in the commentary box, and there'd be things to see and commentate on, but they'd be steadfast staring out the window. How do you find yourself educating your colleagues across the country and stuff, and what kind of responses do you get?
Mixed. But because people are used to doing it a certain way, aren't they? So then you're trying to encourage them to try and just adapt a little bit. But I look at it as being it was a new skill to try and develop, because I'd never done any TV commentary, exclusive TV commentary, just for TV. I've only ever done radio commentary. So for it to for it to work properly, where it could work on across TV pitches, you can't possibly ignore what is on the monitor. And that also works for radio as well. You can talk over the pitches and that still works for radio. So you can adapt to the two a little bit. But yeah, I have to try and encourage some of my colleagues to try and embrace it a little bit. And it is, I find it a way of developing a new skill. And I remember having a conversation with the producer of Test Match Special, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something, maybe 3 years ago, because I've been doing it 4 years, haven't we? And he said to me, the way that you're able to blend a radio and a TV commentary, not just me personally, but the whole team, everybody, we're able to blend it all together is a really, really high, skilled job to do properly, because it is two different roles. But I looked at it as being, it's a new skill. I can develop the idea of commentating on the TV and learning how to do that and learning what's on screen and when to speak and when not to speak. And you can afford to have gaps in radio. You can afford to let it breathe. You don't need to speak all the time. So there is a way of making it work, and I hope we've found a way of making it work.
And I was wondering what your sort of thoughts and opinions are on kind of streaming a county game in the office, sitting in the corner of the office getting on with your job, but then being able to kind of dip in and out of a 4-day game. Do you think about the audience outside the ground? You've been doing it for years, taking Lancashire cricket to an audience further away, and the number of listeners to that game would probably supersede the capacity of the ground, for example, and we're going even further and further. What do you think that does to the engagement of the game and stuff like that we now bring it into that space? I think
it's brilliant for the game. I think that to have anything that's easily accessible, especially when there's tough competition, and you look at this summer when we're chatting now, there's been a European Championships, there's been an Olympic Games, just to name a couple of major sporting events. Competition for people's attention is really fierce, whether that's trying to get people to listen to radio or get people to watch, sport on the telly or watch a particular sport. So for county cricket, where they don't get the vast numbers coming into the ground, but as you touched on before, there's a much broader audience just on the periphery that are accessing it and wanting to engage in it. I think having the sport relatively easily accessible to listen, to watch, to engage with, I think is really, really important for the game, and trying to attract younger people to watch county cricket and to follow county cricket is a challenge for the game. And if you can make it easy and fun, that's important, because it's a sport. As much as it's serious and it's professional, and I appreciate people and players want to win, of course they do, and it's competitive, and it's a serious high performance sport. It's also fun, and we need to make it fun. And I think that's vital for county cricket going forward, when not just competition from other sports, but actually competition from within the game itself, from shorter format cricket, from 20 over cricket, 100 ball cricket. There's loads of stuff for people to engage. So for county cricket to remain relevant and solid, not just in terms of its purpose, we know that, but broader speaking, in terms of trying to get people to engage and watching it, making it easy to get hold of, making it easy to flick on the TV or put on your app or whatever it is, I think he's massive. Yeah.
Absolutely love T20. It's just something about the urgency of it all and the excitement of it all and stuff. It's T20 is a great idea. I think it's been brilliant, and it's how do you try and bring that to a 4-day game? I think that's the challenge for us as Badgering Coombs, to try and engage the audience better. And we did a few things, and we've been practicing and trying ideas like putting microphones on players and putting presenters on the back of rollers and all that stuff. But it's that drone shots and all that sort of stuff. We've been looking at the health and safety implications of getting you to zip wire off the type of Blackpool Tower into the cricket ground. That would be a good one. Or at least maybe parachute into the... Anyway, there's lots of health and safety implications, but it's all doable.
Yeah, there's a few forms.
Yeah, there's a few forms to fill in. But that's the whole point, isn't it? Is that there's no challenge is too big for what we want to try and achieve, and it's all about that engagement level and how we try and engage. And what do you think that does? Does that light a fuse? Does that, flick a switch in the fans' sort of ideas of what cricket should become?
Yeah, I think potentially it does. I think that the engagement side of it is really interesting. You need obviously players on board with it, and I think largely at Lancashire players are on board with it, which is really important. I think the ability to, one of the great inventions in shorter form cricket is speaking to players.
Yeah.
When that was first introduced, I think the Big Bash did it to begin with in Australia, where they mic'd up a player, and famously they mic'd up Shane Warne, who talked his way through a 6-ball over and was telling the commentator, but more importantly the viewer, exactly what he was going to bowl. And every delivery he said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. That is exceptional. So what you guys have done already is that. There was a moment I remember from the tour of India where Josh Bohannon and Keaton Jennings were chatting, so I think it was captain and vice captain in conversation. And we just let it go. We didn't need to say anything because they were telling us, they were bringing us a wonderful insight into what was going on. I think that is what supporters love to hear. They want that insight. They don't want to listen to me. They want to hear what's, obviously you can't have it all the time. You've got to have but they want to hear what's going on out there. That's, as I do, because that's where you're getting a real insight. So that, being able to mic up a player, which is what you guys have done on a couple of occasions now, has been absolutely fantastic. And I think that interaction, that you get out there from the ground into someone's front room or to wherever they listen, that is a direct contact with what's happening. That's unique.
And technology allowed to do that. And that's the thing is, if you go back, you probably only have to go back 10 years. That would have been really difficult to do. And again, in the broadcast space, that would be really difficult to do. In fact, actually today, that would be difficult to do, because if you think about your Ofcom rules and regulations and all the things you've got to protect, sometimes you look at broadcast television and it's highly produced because it has to be really highly produced, because it has to take care of things. We can't let any old person get on the BBC because it could be an absolute disaster. So by bringing a fan into the broadcast in the digital space, you get away with a few things that you probably can't get away with in the broadcast space. There's a whole thick book of Ofcom rules and regulations that I've had to learn, but you don't have that on Facebook. You don't have that on YouTube.
No, you don't. No. And I remember when you first suggested the idea of micing up a player, and then you first suggested the idea of bringing, I was quite nervous about it, because going back to our first conversation, we're trying to make this thing work between what I'm doing and what you guys are doing, and want to make it one big product. But I was quite nervous about that, not so much necessarily the player. Well, actually, maybe thinking of some of the players, yeah. But that did make me a little bit nervous, because we had no delay on it or anything like that. But in the end, it was great. And
I think that comes from relationship building and all that kind of stuff, because that's the whole point, isn't it? If I'd have just rocked up tomorrow and said, right, Scott, this is what we're doing, you'd probably seen your ass. It's like, go away, you cocky bugger, you know what I mean? Whereas actually you grow, and it's the same with the lads downstairs and the women's side, is that you grow and you build a relationship to be able to, and this is the thing as well, if you look at broadcasters and the large companies, they don't necessarily have those relationships with the players like we do, like you do. You've been around here for 14 years, you've got a relationship with all these players, and you're able to speak frankly with them, and because they trust your opinions, they trust your conversations and all that kind of stuff, and that then opens you up to this great access that you get, and this access that you're able to try things out. I mean, once we were going to try and do interviews on the balcony, for example, and the lads were like, well, I'm not sure about that, because this is our space, and this is when we're talking things, this is where we can do that without any issues and stuff like that. So it was like, yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's go and stick a microphone in the middle of the outfield instead. So it's that kind of relationship building, and how quickly, I mean, you're probably still trying to figure me out now, but how quickly, or how did you manage to sort of trust me, trust the Badgers? How's that journey been for you? And how have we made it easy? Have we made it difficult?
Terrible.
Have we made it stressful?
Yeah,
have we made it a nightmare? Do you
nightmare.
Sweat in the middle of the night knowing you've got to come here the next day?
demanding things of me.
I am pretty demanding. I know I am. I'm pretty bad, aren't I? What's that been like though? What has that been like? It's joking aside. Well, but yeah, what has that been like? Because you've worked with so many different companies and broadcasters and contractors and freelancers. What's it like being part of the Badger mindset?
What I've loved about working with you guys over the last 4 years is how much, and I hope you all take this the right way, but how much you have learnt about this particular sport, because it can be quite a difficult one to follow if you're just coming into it and thinking, oh, we're just going to do a broadcast on a cricket match, or it'll be fine. Can be quite complicated, can't it? And I think the biggest, I mean, you're all largely wonderful people to work with. Now you're all great, and you're good fun. You've got loads of energy. That 4-day cricket can be, over a course of a 6-month season, is a slog. You can have long days. Everyone gets tired. Everyone gets a bit narky. But you're invariably, everyone's got a smile on their face, and it's really quite enjoyable to be around. And you've got a lot of young people that work with you, which is brilliant because they give off a natural kind of energy, which is great. But how quickly your team has got to grips with what works and how to follow a game and what to pick up on, I think has been absolutely magnificent. I think you should be really proud of how quickly whether they've tried to learn it or they just naturally picked up on it, but it's been brilliant.
Tell us a little bit about then what you think the future might look like a little bit, because we've seen a little bit of a development in how we do things. You've seen us with all the big kit and everything like that, and then you see us at the away games, so the outground games, and we come with a little bit less kit because we keep some of it here, and we've kind of worked into this hybrid remote working. And
because that wasn't the case at first, was it then?
Nope. We would take it all with us into a van, and rig it and all that kind of stuff. And now we're getting into this, what they call an IP-based workflow, which is the cameras can go somewhere and all the rest of the stuff that we do here. And you thought you'd get away from me, and I'm still in your ear. Do you know what I mean? It's like, bar that, what's that been like? And and I'm talking about the around the ground stuff and bringing in the extra levels and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so many different kind of, I say inventions, but things that you're included now in a game-to-game basis. And you mentioned going around the grounds. I mean, that's something that's changed. We just rattle through some scores and move on. And now you've found a way where we can do score updates and people can see it on screen for the viewers that are watching as well as those that are listening. So I mean, that's another great example of how it works together. I still don't know how on earth you managed to do what you do from, I mean, what you did in India was ridiculous, but how you do what you do from, whether up in the Cumbrian Fells at Sedbergh School or out on the coast at Southport and Blackpool, and you wouldn't know if you're just watching at home. You wouldn't have a clue really that you managed to find a way to make it work and for it all to be pretty seamless. And there's been a few obstacles along the way, a few power cuts along the way that you just find a way to make it work.
That was one of my favourite moments. I think it was Blackpool.
It was, yeah.
And the generator blew, whatever it did. It was a brand new generator as well, which was frustrating. But then we kind of scrambled into a position. We dragged you from the tent up to the balcony where I think Katie's camera was at the time. And we had you sat commentating on the balcony with me holding a. In fact, I've just remembered. I think it was the second year, and we had a dodgy cable. And for about 4 or 5 overs, I was knelt down by your desk, holding that cable to get the audio out of the stream. Our relationship with Lancs Cricket isn't really transactional. It's very much about sharing a success and a failure together. It's very annoying because at Badgering Coombs we always say we share our success, we share our failure. If one person makes a mistake, we've all not been there to support that mistake, so we need to get together and it opens itself up to a really good environment for getting stuff done. But I feel it when these boys aren't playing well and when the women aren't playing well. And I remember one game the women were playing, we could have won it. And we didn't. And I was arsey for like 2 days. I was just like, I don't like this. Do you know what I mean? Why have I become invested in the success or failure of this team?
You do. Well, you do, because it's better when they win. Because it's easier. Everyone's happy. It's just a better place to be when the teams win. You mentioned the women's game there, and again, you look at you're doing double headers from different grounds as well. You're able to, again, I don't know, we're able to speak. There was a game the other day. I'm here, and there was a women's match being played at Blackpool or Southport, and I'm speaking to the commentator over there. And he's
wizards,
yeah.
Just magic wizard dust.
He's brilliant.
Well, I mean, and again, I think this is. What do you think the future looks like? What do you think we should be doing more of in regards to delivering content? But then, so it's a two-part question, this really, and the other bit is, what do you think the space around digital broadcasting is going to look like?
From my experience, and I'm not massively savvy on this particular subject, but from my experience, our biggest challenge for what we do at a radio station is trying to get as much as we can onto your mobile phone, because that's the challenge from our point of view, from radio's point of view. The number of people listening to radio in its traditional sense is still good. There's still in there millions of people every day tuning into radio, but the trend is that way, and certainly for younger people. So I think having the accessibility in whichever industry you want to look at, it needs to be easily accessible, and that's on people's mobile phones, isn't it? I think so anyway, and that's how I see the future from what I do, sports broadcasting in particular, which is an issue that we have, which is another subject. He's been able to. It doesn't apply for cricket. We can put cricket online. We can put cricket on your mobile phone. You can listen to it, no problem. But having that access, that easy access, which is where people are driven to getting stuff from their mobile phone, I think is the way it's going.
I remember we were at South Northwest, South Shields,
South Northwest,
Northumberland,
South North.
We were up there playing Durham.
Yeah.
And we were broadcasting, and we noticed that some of the kids in the crowd were on their phones, and we were sort of panning the crowd shots and stuff. And I think you started talking about being on the phones. The kids then started waving because they heard themselves and saw themselves on the phones.
There you go.
Just a prime example of that. It was just fantastic.
I think that's. It's going back to what we were saying before about accessibility. It's for it to be easily watched and viewed from whether you're 10 or whether you're 60. You know, cricket fans are savvy because they find ways to listen.
Yeah.
You know, and you think, traditional older cricket supporters would shuffle in and put the wireless on. They find ways of following it. They'll work out how to use a laptop. They'll work out how to get it on the mobile phones. They'll work out how to get it on the TVs because they want to watch it and want to listen to it. So whether you're 10 or whether you're a little bit older than that, you find ways of doing it.
Tell us a little bit about the tour to India, because that was pretty special, to be honest. And it's quite interesting that it didn't really take us that long to figure out what the plan was, because we were uncertain whether we were going to go and do that. We were uncertain at the time whether we were going to go out to India or not, and there was lots of to and fro in between myself and James and you know the club to decide on whether or not it could be done and stuff like that. And obviously we had a massive challenge there, but we pretty much brought it together quite quickly. What was that like, that period of, what did you expect? You came in at 2:00 in the morning or whenever it was. What was that? Just tell us what that period was.
Well, when this was suggested, when James Price rang me and said, we're thinking of commentating on bringing the coverage of the friendly games from India, I straight away said, this has got Colin's fingerprints written all over it. I can almost see his fingers working to try and find a way to. That was my first response. Yeah, your grubby fingerprints.
Worried about it, or like, yeah, this is worth.
No,
doing?
Of course I was worried about it. Yeah, because you're involved in it. No, so yeah, he said, "Do you want to come and commentate?" And I'm like, "Well, of course I do, because that sounds like it could be quite good fun." And then equally, it sounds horrible, because it was in here at whatever time it was, 2:30, 3:00 in the morning. But actually, it was really, really good fun. And that we've touched on before when we heard some of the players chatting. We managed to get that. We managed to get the players mic'd up on the outfield from India. And that was brilliant. To be able to speak to players from in here, from the ground over to India, mid-game, close of play, that was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. And the setup was brilliant. We had the screens in here. Yeah, the whole thing was absolutely fantastic. And how you managed to get such a really good quality product back from India, and then you're like, oh, we're going to mic a player up and you can speak to him. What? You offer your rocker? Well, no, it was absolutely fantastic.
I think we'll obviously and this is the thing, is do you make a rod for your own back, or are you just continually trying to raise the standard and raise the ideas and what you do? And you know, all of that stuff that we took out to India fit inside a Pelly case. It went in to the hold and all that kind of stuff. It was all pretty much, it was a bit janky in places, but that's to be expected when you're trying to prevent yourself spending thousands and thousands of pounds on equipment and freight charges. And you know, the badges are obviously gutted because they all wanted to go out to India, and luckily enough just me and Katie got to go out. But I'm probably going to have to negotiate with James to take a few more badges out, because I think they want the experience of going out there.
Can you take commentators out as well?
Well, I don't know, it depends.
They're at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah, they'll all be down to James. So they all said that they all got the jet lag without actually having to travel to get it. Do you know what I mean?
It was funny, I was doing... I do have a proper job. I do have a full-time job away from this.
Oh God, yeah.
So I don't know, which I sometimes forget. So I was in here doing at 2:30, 3:00 in the morning doing a game, and then I'm doing a full shift at work the following day. I'm presenting our sports program at night the following day.
Brilliant.
But wonderful fun. What I would say, right, is because obviously I'm working with you guys here for Lancashire home matches, but I also obviously go away from home and travel around the country, and nobody likes you. No, what I would say, what I would say is that it won't be a surprise to you, but the reaction and the feedback I get, and going back to what we said about my colleagues trying to get used to the idea and trying to embrace new things, everybody appreciates what level we've got to here. You know, well, you guys have got to here. There's nothing to do with me. You guys have got to here. Everybody appreciates that. Even those counties that still actually offer a really good quality stream know that you know, I promise you, no one's paying me to say this.
Yeah.
Know that it's not quite what is done here. And I get that from everybody. There's nobody's thinking, oh, it's, you know, it's not up to a standard. Everyone knows the quality.
I wouldn't sell yourself short on that, Scott, because a lot of it's got down to do with how you deliver it. Because you know, it could have all the switches and buttons in the background, but if the front of the product is you, don't forget, and then how you're telling those stories and things like that, and being able to kind of keep the ship sailing, because there's been times where it's all chaos in here and you're just, yeah, everything's fine, don't listen to that noise going on in the background there. It's just Colin hanging off something to try and make a wire work. But I think, you know, yeah, really, you don't sell yourself short. I think you have a lot to play with that sort of thing. But I would say I'd like to know, because this is the other thing as well. I think with all those clubs, those counties, all those other sports as well, you know, we'd love to be able to do more with more sport organisations, not just cricket either. You know, let's look at other sports as well that we'd love to help and get involved with and stuff like that. And I think there's you know, there are cost implications, and there's always logistics and all the economies of scale and all those things. There's always those things that are involved in running a business and delivering things. But again, we go back to this digital capability, this digital creativity that we have. And you know, I remember we did some work for Worcester just recently, and we only went down with 3 cameras. Well, no, sorry, 5, 6 cameras, but 3 people went down and delivered a couple of their early games and stuff like that. And we did all that from back here again as well. So yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, decent effort that.
If there's anything you could sort of say, because this is a classic end of the question, isn't it? But is there anything you could say to people about working with us and that sort of thing? What would be the key messages that you could say to me? Don't do it.
No,
Run.
Run as far as you can. I suspect that having watched you and your team, and obviously people have left, and people come and people move on and people leave. I would be surprised if anybody leaves Badger and Coombs and leaves your organisation not wiser and better and for it, and whether they end up doing whatever they might do next in their careers, I would be amazed. And I was lucky enough to work at a little commercial radio station when I first started. Tiny little station, doesn't exist anymore. And I constantly refer back to that because I learnt so much as a young person starting out at a small commercial radio station. And I learnt massive amounts in that early part of my career. I'd be amazed if anybody that's worked for you, unless you've really upset them, Colin, would not look back and think, I am better at my job for that experience. Looking on from the outside, that's what I would assume.
Yeah, we're very proud of our talent pathway program at Badgering Coombs. We spot a talent, we spot somebody that's really passionate about what they do, and it's our duty really as industry people to harness that and exploit it in a good way, because you need to make sure that they get every opportunity they can to shine and develop and grow and stuff like that. And it breaks my heart when people want to leave and stuff like that, but that's the point. That's about the journey and stuff. But once a Badger, always a Badger, I think is the case of it really. They're always connected, and some of them are still friends, and they still, some of them are kind of live with each other and stuff. There's Badgers and former Badgers and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's the spirit of what we're about. We invest ourselves in the success and ownership and intent of things. We're very proud of what we do for Lancashire cricket, and we drive Lancashire cricket what we do, and I hope that we get to drive you and the stuff that you do for BBC Lancashire as well. Do you know what I mean? So that's all part of that really, isn't it, that we have to do that. So be ready for, I'm joking. I know you sound like I'm joking, but yeah, I do think a ziplining interview would probably be good, or something to do with Blackpool Zoo, because there's a giraffe at Blackpool Zoo, I'm sure I can get Jazz on it.
You've got too much time to think. That's what I thought about you. That's my view of you. Too much thinking time. Too many ideas floating around in your brain.
For every 100 ideas I take to James, he kiboshes 101 of them.
No, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. But one sneaks in every now and then. It does. He's tired. I've worn him down.
You have that effect on us all, Colin.
Do you know what I mean? And if I just let him do it. Just let him do it. It'll be all right. It's not, that's the secret to success. Wear your opponent down to just do it and then get it done.
Yeah.
Well, look, thanks very much, mate. Appreciate it as always. Let's catch up in 14 years' time and still see if we're still friends then.
Knackered already?
And it must be a great compliment to Badgers, and you must feel proud about it, that Sky will drop in commentators and pick up the Lancs TV feed, the Badgers feed, for a county championship game that we're providing. We're the only county that are broadcasting live on Geo, and I'm sure I heard Course will talk about 500 million subscribers. It's mind-boggling when you're in that space of pushing boundaries and trying to keep pushing the service level. When you get a stable business and you're looking to grow, you have to challenge yourself to think differently, and how can we do business in a different way? Why wouldn't we ask you to come and help us to do remote broadcasts from here in 2 different countries? Colin, why not?